Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing okay. I'm not gonna lie, it's quite early to be trying to film this, but I want to fixate on something else, and I know that I can't do that until after I record this video. If you're an autistic person, I think the motivator of all time is just wanting to fixate. It will already have me speedrunning tasks like no one's business. But speaking of fixations, I finally finished Undermoss, which is my kind of like comic project or comic adjacent project. I'm not really sure what to call it. I don't know if it's a graphic novel or a visual novel or like, I don't know what it is. I finished it though, after fixating for like, I'm not sure, more than 6 months. I started it in April or May of last year, and it is now January, so it's been a while. But it's done. It's finally done, and I have a big box of books in my room, and it's always a very strange thing when you've been working on a project on screens for a number of months, just staring at like little pixels, and then it becomes an object you can hold in your hands, and that's, especially as someone with aphantasia, that's a really surreal feeling. In a lot of respects, nothing feels real until I get to this point and I can hold it and see that it's a book and see kind of like how thick it is, especially. Like that's a lot of pages, so it's pretty cool. I don't know how to do this video. I think I just wanted to relay the information in one place where everyone can see it, and then maybe show you some of the pages and flip through so that you know what you're getting. So I will try and stay on track, which famously very bad at, but the book is available as a digital listing. I don't know if you can hear Wednesday, but the book is available as a digital listing, so you can buy it from my shop like you normally would as files. There's a PDF inside, and there's the A6 page files like this, and then there's also the individual pocket size page files as well for anyone who wants to print it for pocket rings. It is 160 pages, so I don't know that I necessarily recommend printing the full thing at home, especially as individual pocket pages. Within the files, I've also included the A4 sheets I was working on, so when I was making the book, I used to compile 8 pocket pages on a sheet of A4, and those are not to size because you can't put 8 pocket pages on a sheet of A4, but they are legible, so when I was working I would print them out every 8 pages so I could see them all at once. I have them on my wall. They look kind of nice as posters, some of them. Some of them are more visually coherent than others, but like they look pretty cool, so I included those too. So if you just want to be able to print it out and hold it in your hands either after reading or like while reading, then I think the A4 sheets are a good option that aren't so expensive to print. It's less ink, obviously, than 160 pages. I think there's 19 A4 sheets, so that's a potential. Otherwise, if you want to print it yourself, go ahead, obviously. All the files are in there. If you take it to a professional print company, like a local one, then email me to get the CMYK files. Those are only available as A6 pages, so it'll be the same as these. But I do have those. You'll just have to email me. CMYK files aren't generally required for printing at home, so that's not an issue for most people, but if you take it to a print shop, then it's different. If you don't print CMYK files with a print shop, the colours will come out muddy. It's a very strange thing. It does make sense, but it's always alarming your first time. So that's the digital files. When I open the PDF, I open it on my phone, and if I read it by single pages, which is how it automatically opens, I can read it on my phone. So that's an option to consider, I suppose, is that it is legible, I think, on a smartphone, especially as individual pages rather than double pages. That's what I do. When I can't sleep, I just open it up and read it again. So that's digital files. For UK folk, I have copies that will go up in the shop at the end of this week or sometime this week, hopefully by the time you're watching. And I will start shipping those next week, so from next Wednesday probably. There's not too much to add there. This is that book, and I will show it to you. I also have B-grade copies because of a mistake, but I'll go over those at the end, just because they're not relevant for anyone else. For international folk, I had thought I had found like a really great solution, and in some respects I kind of did, but it's not quite the sort of like the all-around solution we were hoping for. The manufacturer that I've been using for more than 10 years now, they offer a service called PrintLink where I can upload the book that I get printed and then it goes online and then you can order it like on demand. So it's a print on demand service, and it would be the same as this. The only difference is that the cover is like marginally thinner for spec reasons, but it's exactly the same otherwise. The only problem being is that for some countries the shipping is extortionate. We are kind of living in a world where that is an increasing issue, and it's not something I have any control over, unfortunately. But in America and Canada, for example, the shipping is immense, and I'm really sorry about that. It does suck, but it's there if you want the option. I know a few people have been kind of like grouping together to bulk order, so that's kind of cool. You can do that if you want, obviously, but I can't take any responsibility for the risks. But it's an option if you have friends or family members that you can order with. But it's there as an option. I'm not sure about how the shipping is for Europe or other countries. I just know that there's a couple that are a lot. But that's an option if you want it. I will put all the links in the description. So for my shop for the digital files, for my shop for the UK books, and then also the print link for anyone else. If you're in the UK and you don't want to wait for me to ship it, you can also order from the print link. I'm not sure if it's quicker or slower than I would be. I think it takes a few days for them to ship, which same. So you can just kind of pick your option, to be honest. They're the same cost, but if you order from me, then I get a bit more of the money. I'm not making very much from the print link books because I'm not printing them or shipping them, so the manufacturer gets the bulk of the money. I only make a couple of pounds per print link book. So if you care about that. So those are the options for reading and buying. The entire comic or book or whatever you want to call it is also up on my website for free to read anyway. You don't have to buy it to read it. It's all there. You can read the entire thing. I wanted to try and make it as accessible as possible for as many people as possible. And that was harder than I expected it to be honest. But it's there, you can read it. So it went through a few iterations over the time. It started as a comic in my personal size ring binder, and I still have a few of those pages printed out. It was, I don't know, here's how it started. I had a weird dream. Like first thing in the morning I woke up and I went down to my dad and I said to him like, what about like a zine project where you're just like in a town and things don't make sense and you're just like rifling through drawers? And he had like 1 foot out of bed. He did not even have his glasses on, which to be honest, neither did I. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, no, listen, I think I'm cooking something. And I had this idea in my head and then I just left to write it down, because if I don't write it down, God help me. And that's kind of where it came from. Like, I'm not sure what happened, but I woke up with it. And I was like, oh, I think this has to be a thing. I think I need to make this a thing. And then I think I drew these pages first with the shopkeeper. I was really missing my grandparents at the time, and I was really missing the shop that I grew up in, the corner shop. And then I went back and I did the train station pages because it has to be a train, of course. And then it just kind of spiraled from there. This picture specifically with the hands on hips is very much like my grandfather coded. Like if I think of him, I mean, I can't see anything in my head, but if I think of him, I know that he's standing there with his hands on his hips with his apron on. And that's like, I don't know, that's just it's a whole thing. There's a few Easter eggs, but maybe when I flip through the proper book, we can go through them, and then it might be fun for you to know more of the behind the scenes kind of like context for stuff. But it all started like that, and then it became a Filofax zine, and I had a lot of fun with the layouts. And then I got towards the end of the summer, or it was like, it would have been during the summer in real life, not undermoss life, in real life, and I had done all these summer pages, and then I got to the end of the summer pages, and I was kind of having a crisis because I was like, I realized that the print link wasn't going to be available for personal size because that's too niche, like it's always too niche. And there was nothing within the print link specs that would fit it even remotely. So I've worked out, I had also recently moved to pocket rings for my own like note keeping. And I realized that if I moved it to pocket rings, because I do like to be able to carry it, then I could put it on A6 and it would look fine. And then A6 would be supported by the print link. The one downside I did not consider at the time was that I ideally wanted it to lay flat. I think I've been spoiled by Japanese notebooks, and I loved the idea of it being stitch bound and laying flat, and you being able to like put stickers in it and stuff. I probably still do that, but unfortunately A6 is not supported by the lay flat books or the stitch binding, so that was a downside. It doesn't matter though, because I think it turned out really good. So I got a test copy printed for the personal size, but this wouldn't have been available print link wise, and it was just staple bound, and it didn't feel satisfying enough for how much work I had done. Like, I felt like I'd been working on it for months, and I had already, and I was really proud of the work, and I really felt very attached to it. It's a very personal project, and I have a lot of feelings about it. I find a lot of comfort in it, and when I got this little pamphlet printed, I was like, oh, that is not satisfying. That's not it. Like, it's not right. So this was my test copy, and I was so underwhelmed. Like, it was catastrophically underwhelming, for how I wanted it to feel when you hold it. Like, this was just not giving. So I scrapped this, and then I moved a pocket so that I could make more pages out of the existing pages, and then I could create more pages again, and then hopefully by the end it would feel more substantial. And obviously it does. It's quite different when you look at what it used to be. When I got it printed, I went through a couple of iterations. So the first copy, I, for some reason, chose silk paper, like glossy paper, and it's disgusting. It's more graphic novel coded, it's like comic paper, but I don't think it suits undermoss. It's too shiny and it's too reflective, and it really freaked me out. Like, I got I only ordered, I think, 5 of these, and immediately, as soon as I opened it, I was like, nah, that's not right. So that was one iteration it went through. And then the second iteration, which is the B grade copies for you gay folks, I got paper, like papery paper. It's recycled paper, which is much more undermoss coated, and it looks much nicer. It printed so much better. But the first time I ordered them, I got the paper just like slightly too thick, and it makes the book quite stiff. So that's what the B grade copies are in the shop. There's also a typo on one of the pages. I do this thing when I'm typing to level out the text, because I like it when the text is squared, and I just type a bunch of letters to square the line out, and I forgot to delete them on a page that I fixed at the last possible minute. So the B grade copies also have that small typo. It doesn't affect the text at all. And I will make them substantially cheaper because I need to get rid of them. So that's B grade. But that was the second iteration, or the third iteration that it went through, was that it was slightly too stiff. It's quite nice, really. Like, it feels really substantial, and you can open it wide enough to read it, but you do need some strength in your hands for it. I found that as I read through it, it loosened up, and it wasn't so bad. Obviously, you don't want to crack the spine like you would a paperback novel, because I think the glue would crack and your pages would potentially fall out. It's not a risk I would want to take, but it is legible, 100%, and nothing is wrong with the book itself. It's just the paper is too thick. I wasn't happy with that because I am a bit of a perfectionist. So when I got my final copy printed, and they came yesterday, big box of them, and it's perfect now, and I feel good about it. So those are the iterations it went through. When I first made the cover last week, or no, not last week, it would be like 2 weeks ago now. I've lost a lot of time to undermoss. It looked like this, and I just printed it out and folded it, and I was just holding this little like folded sheet of paper, and I was like, oh, I think I've got it. With the little greens like X's. Those were thanks to one of my patrons. They mentioned a little pop of green would make sense, and they were so right. They were 100% right. As soon as they said it, I was like, oh yes. So that's how it came about. So those were kind of the iterations it went through. That was how I got here. I made it all on Procreate, obviously. That's how I do everything. Everything is very DIY. In a lot of respects, my life would be easier if I used, you know, Illustrator or Photoshop or something, but I never learned how to use those programs. They've never felt natural to me. They've always felt overwhelming, and it got to a point where I got so many years in that I was like, well, I'm here now. And so I just keep doing things in my own weird way. So on the front we have some snowdrops, which is nice because they have a lot of symbolism. So if you look up kind of like the symbology behind snowdrops, a lot of those things are relevant. There's the ASCII spiral in the background because all of undermoss is kind of this overlapping between sort of like digital nostalgia and nature, and I really like that. I feel like that's quite relevant to my life, and so being able to make a project out of that was really nice. Obviously text sideways, undermoss volume 1, and then on the back I came up with like this little, again, this little text was, I was trying to pin it down when I was still working on it. There must have only been 100 pages in, and I was trying to pin the concept down. Like, I don't want it to be strict. I kept a lot of it open-ended on purpose. Like, are we dead? Are we asleep? Is it a coma? Like, you know, all those like weird conspiracy theories you get about children's cartoons. They all apply. I didn't want it to be that concrete. I wanted it to stay vague, but I wanted it to have, I don't know, some direction. It was a very hard line to toe, and I don't know if I managed it. But I came up with this little snippet that just says, in the spaces between loss and longing, dreams and death, undermoss presents itself, and then a pocket, a place, a home. So it could also be a pocket universe. There's like, I'm leading, but I don't know, there's ideas, like there's the thoughts. Again, none of it is concrete. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just however you want to interpret it to be, I think. And I want to try and keep it that way. Eventually, I guess, I need to come up with a way of making the story itself more concrete in some way. I don't know though, do I? Like, I get to make the rules, but I'm not sure. But that's the concept. So the idea is that you wake in a town, you wake it outside a train station, and you're not sure how you got there, like you can't remember. And for the inside front cover, I did another ASCII, and it's a literal key, which I think is nice. And then there's a short introduction with some thoughts, and some of my inspirations as well. And then it opens straight into the book, and I haven't actually opened this copy yet, so bear with me. But you wake in a train station, and you're not sure how you got there. You're tired and you're kind of drowsy and warm, and there's a ticket in your pocket, but the location and everything is smudged on the ticket, so you can't see where you were going or where you came from. The like next train sign is throwing an error code, which first of all feels very accurate to growing up in London, but it's all sort of fuzzy and broken up, so you don't know what's going on. And then it spirals from there, so you kind of move through the town. There's a map, and there's question marks all over the map. Cobwebs on everything, but no drawings of spiders for the arachnophobes among you. I was very generous. No big spider detail drawings. You get introduced to the shopkeeper, who, as I said, is kind of like loosely inspired by my grandfather. I think more inspired by just growing up in the shop environment in a lot of ways. I've been homesick since they sold it. They retired, so it's a good thing. But I have been really missing it, and kind of like the environment and the community. And so that was kind of like why it started, I think, was I was really in my feels about it, and then I just drew it, and then I was like, okay. And then it spiraled, as I keep saying. So some Easter eggs in the shop pictures, all my favourite foods, Kraft mac and cheese, which you can't buy in the UK very often, but I do really like it for some reason. The UK equivalents don't hit the same. I don't know what you guys are putting in the Kraft mac and cheese, but I think it's chemicals. Count Chocula, again, you can't buy that here, but I like it, and I like the concept of like the monster cereals. I think that's great. And then like instant noodles. I'm a big fan. Like those are fun corner shop staples in my world. And then the bundle of newspapers, because as a kid my granddad was always tying up the leftover newspapers with like string. And the fresh bread, because my grandparents used to make fresh rolls for the shop every day, or during the weekdays. And the milk cartons, I spent so much of my childhood putting milk on shelves. So when I look at this page, for me, like a lot of this is very homely. And even the outside of the shop too is loosely inspired by the shop I grew up in. There's a picture at the end actually of the book. I included a photograph of my granddad outside his shop, so you can see. But that's the beginning, and then there's some cool bits going on. I won't go through the whole book because we'll be here for 9,000 years. And you can read it for yourself and see things, but obviously I'm a spooky person and there's a lot of Easter eggs. The sandwiches, as I said, Monday to Friday, so that's another little sign. And then the pylon, some ghost cards, not my ghost cards, but some ghost cards. And then it just keeps going. So the pages in this iteration are nice because they're smooth and they're soft, but they're recycled paper. They're not textured, they're very, very soft. It's a really sort of like velvety matte feeling, which is perfect. I'm so much happier. And if you are a perfectionist, getting stuff printed is like the devil because you just don't know until you get it. and ordering only 5 test copies is very expensive. I think I paid £35 for the shiny ones. I was so mad at myself. This is so much better. And I don't know if you can see too, but there's a little sort of like almost like when you X out of a window, and I have it on both sides. And it's just a small detail again to bring that like digital feeling back into it, just a little bit. The abandoned house, when I redid the size, I was able to add this section about like thinking you can see something moving in the window, which is fun. That wasn't in the original size because it didn't fit. But when I broke everything down and resized it, I was able to elaborate in certain places, and that was a good feeling. Like both of these pages are new. I was able to elaborate on the attic a bit more. The high street, and the vending machine, and the little cat, the sign for the bog, or the sign for everything, the salt marsh. I was talking to some of my family members and they were like, of course your imaginary town has a bog and a marsh, and I was like, do you know what? Yeah, obviously. Like, why choose? Why not have both in my town, my world? Like, what is the point otherwise? And these books loosen up as you read them. This one is stiff because I haven't opened it yet, but they do loosen up and they're easy to read. When I shrunk it down too, I was able to incorporate more of these like black pages, and I really enjoy the feeling of those as you go through. I redid the telephone page, which turned out really nice. Basically, I'm just really happy with all of it. We can flip through all the pages, and if I see any more obvious Easter eggs, I'll point them out to you. Oh, this one is from Hannibal. That's the Will Graham clock. Just a little one, because I think at this point I was rewatching Hannibal while watching and while working, and I was like, that feels vaguely topical, like that could be a thing. Especially because time is kind of out of loop. In this one, the seasons kind of work in order, but I think for the next volume, maybe the seasons will be kind of like erratic and we'll go from snow to sunshine between pages kind of thing. I think this first volume as an introductory volume is more chronological and it makes more sense, and then I hope that as time goes I can spiral it a bit and kind of make it less coherent in a way that is still obviously readable. Oh, St. Anthony, that's another Easter egg. We have a little St. Anthony up here because that's my guy, my main guy. And then another ASCII illustration. And this is fun. This is a little Easter egg. If you watch a lot of like Ghost Adventures and stuff, it's the fucking Xbox Connect ghost. And you can always see them and they're always like, oh my god, they're dancing, and then they're like moving around, and I thought that would be really funny to incorporate just because like I watch a lot of ghost shows, or at least when I was a kid I did. And I thought that was a really funny tie-in, I don't know. Funny to me, probably not funny to anyone else. This one, he's making cowl, which is like a Welsh stew soup thing. Really good. So that's, I guess, another small Easter egg, sort of. And then the vending machine for the first time. And there's a song on here. I think in the next volume I'll have like a soundtrack or a mixtape. I think it would be fun. Didn't get around to it this time. I was able to improve upon the C pages when I drew them smaller, so that was also good. And then we have the cave. A little, I guess, ironic, would that be the term? When I first drew these pages with the cave with Saint Infinite, I did not realize just how relevant this would become to me. At the time I was mostly battling with my sleep issues, but then my brain started trying to kill itself. And I went through a lot, as you guys know, most of you watching, I had a lot of neurological issues. I have a neurologist now, like on retainer. I was really unwell, and so when I drew this and I was talking about neurological disorders, I was kind of just thinking about sleep stuff, and then my brain was like, oh, neurological disorders. And then yeah, so when I first read the test copy through, it was quite emotional to get back to these pages and to read that and to realize like this whole book was born basically while I was on bed rest and like while I was really deeply unwell, and I didn't realize how relevant those early pages would be. And so that's kind of like one of those, like, I guess maybe serendipitous things when I look back at it. Like, it's, I don't know. But I like this. There's a sign that says meteor shower sometime soon. Outside, look up. Like, that's all. That's it. Like, that you just have to do that. And I thought that was kind of fun. The orange peeling comes from that really famous poem about sharing an orange with a friend or someone that you love. And like when they peel the orange for you and they give you a segment. I read that at some point, and my dad has always peeled oranges for me. Even now, like I'm at the big age of 28 and my dad still peels my oranges. He just does it without asking, really. He just, you know, or like he'll be having an orange with lunch and he'll just offer me a couple of pieces, and it just feels like one of those things. Like that's, so when I first read that poem, it resonated very deeply. As like part of like a lifelong routine, I think. And so I don't know, I wanted to draw it here too, just one of those ones. And the broom, my granddad was always sweeping outside the shop. And then we have Miles and some of the pictures. Banana Slug, just because I really love Coraline, especially as a kid, and I always wanted to draw a banana slug. They're such fun colours. And then we have some cobwebs and some sort of like tadpoles. Bleeding hearts, and then this is like graffiti on a fence. This is welcome home, and I quite liked that as well. And then back in the attic, and then I drew a postcard that says I'd rather be an undermoss, which I thought was fun. I don't know like where you're buying postcards in undermoss, I guess the corner shop, but just like a little, this was the original end of the zine, and then this is where I picked it back up for the summer pages. And then stacking tins, which I did a lot of as a kid too. The night sky, and then some nighttime stuff. The ice cream, this is fun because when I was a kid in primary school, they always had these bear-shaped bins, and like I made it look really cute, but they were grotty. They were always really gross and they stank, and they were always covered in wasps. But I showed it to my brother and he immediately recognized it, and I thought that was nice. So if you're like a UK primary school child, or you were at some point, not if you are now, then you might recognize that as like a school staple, was the funny shaped bins. I think there were a couple of other ones. I think maybe there was a shark or something, or a dolphin, the bear, and then I think there was like a frog maybe, and they were so weird, but that's another little Easter egg. The sea dragons, I saw those in real life for the first time in an aquarium in Toronto a couple of years ago, and they really stuck with me. So they're not sea horses, but sea dragons. They're like leafy sea dragons. Big fan. And then we have these pages, and these are inspired by all my grandparents, I think, really. Like, they're not just inspired by my one grandfather. My other grandfather, my dad's dad, is the one who taught me to recognize a lot of birds. I think he participated in conservation efforts for red kites or something like that. I think that's what him and my dad tell me. I'm never sure, but something like that. And he was the one who taught me how to look at the shapes of a bird in the sky and to know like what they are. And then to match them to their sounds. And so that refers to him rather than my other grandfather. I've been very lucky in my life to have like 5 grandparents. I have a lot of grandparents, and that's a really cool thing. So a lot of them are in here. This one obviously kind of like more topical for me personally, but I thought it would be nice to incorporate in some way. Just that feeling of being unwell and not really knowing why. I've been a chronic nosebleeder my whole life. It really sucks, but you know, it's just one of those things. And then being taken care of, I thought was a nice sentiment. And then the bookshop that is not a bookshop sometimes. And the spiral staircase is an obvious reference to like creepypastas and stuff. I really enjoyed that stuff as a kid. I was there for like the OG days of it, really. And so a lot of that kind of comes into play. This one, drawing in the moss, I really enjoyed drawing this. It was really fun to layer up all the greens and to play with the blend modes to get the effect. And it printed a lot better than I expected, so it looks good. The handprint and the spirals. And then another vending machine trip, and there's a couple of my favourite books kind of throughout Undermoss. I've kind of snuck them in there, but especially Under Milkwood, that first opening text that I have here. When I read it, it really gives me tingles. It's a lot of fun. And then blackberries, because my grandmother on my mum's side used to pick blackberries and put them. I think it was during COVID we picked them, and we had them in like a Tupperware. And I think about that. And then in Reading, where we live, like in the autumn, everyone is out with the blackberries. Like there's always women out with like weird containers, like a big butter container, and they're always collecting blackberries. And I love blackberries. So like when I was working, I was trying to think about like the seasonality and the kind of small moments in life that I look forward to each season. And I tried to incorporate some of those where I could. And then here is where I think I was on bed rest and I was trying to pick it back up. So this would have been October time, and I wanted to have like a whole section for the autumn. But by the time I got there, I think Halloween was already over and I was really gutted. I had been really, really unwell, and so I hadn't been able to work in the way that I wanted. But I drew the graveyard and I had a lot of fun with that. And then I drew the gravestones and I really enjoyed drawing those. There's 3 of them. And there's Dead Man's Fingers fungus, which is a good time. And then there's a shrine as well in the graveyard, which I will come back to at some point. Like all of these things I think I'll revisit and kind of expand upon. And then the bog, I drew my bog and it turned out well. I was really worried. That's bog rosemary down there. And then I went back recently and added 2 more bog pages because I didn't feel like the bog was long enough. And I got to add some like spiraling water and some broken walkways. And more bird sounds. And then this bit with the phosphorescent orbs, the like bog lights, the will-o'-the-wisps, and you're talking to Miles about it. And there's some more plants as well. And then Miles on the sofa. And then this one, the pumpkin patch. Just a cute little, that was kind of all I could manage in the end. Like I was too upset, I think, to do more Halloween stuff, which I know sounds kind of silly for me, but like I was just not really coping. So I just did a couple of pages and then I moved on. And then we have the fleece, and I really wanted to draw this spiral of leaves. I had that in my thoughts for undermoss for months. It was in my obsidian map, my big spider webbing obsidian map. And I had written it down the whole time with the conkers. And then so when I finally got to draw it for page 105, I was really excited. And then the missing kid carton, it just says missing someone, we think, which again was a note that I had in my app for like months and months. And then the bookshop, and we finally get our 3rd character. A couple more book recommendations, and the cat. And then there's like a ghost story inspired again by my granddad from the shop because he's Irish, and he told me a lot of scary ghost stories as a kid. Even like recently he was telling them to me again. It was after I saw him actually in November that I drew those pages, and then I also drew this one because they retired. Now they live all the way up north by the sea, and every story starts with like he was walking on the beach and he ran into a man with a dog. Like every single story he tells me now, it's like, oh, I was talking to this man with a dog on the beach. And it became kind of like it's really funny. And so I came back and I added into my book a man on the beach talking. I didn't draw his dog, unfortunately. I wasn't ready to commit to dogs, but like I drew the man on the beach. And then this one is Talking Heads. Is it Talking Heads? Yeah, same as it ever was. Because I was listening to this on loop at the time and I was like, I feel like that has to be in there. And also like I feel like I like it. I always, in my head, I can always just hear same as it ever was. And I feel like undermoss is kind of like that, like everything is the same and it's also different all the time. I don't know. The whole thing is kind of fuzzy in my head, to be honest with you, at this point. And then the video rental store, I thought that was fun. I always say video rental store and not video rental shop because shop doesn't sound right, like video shop, video store. Obviously I'm British and undermoss is also British, but like video store, video rental store sounds more correct somehow. But it's also an internet cafe because those are like a lost relic, I feel. And it's VHS tapes in there. Inspired by Blockbuster as a kid, obviously. I really miss it. I really miss just going in there and smelling the stale popcorn and like picking through videos and DVDs. DS games as well. I think the first time I played Animal Crossing, I rented it from Blockbuster. And there's a UFO lamp, which is inspired by the horror cinema I built in The Sims. And then the computer is a big old clanky white thing. As a kid, the best sound to help me fall asleep was the sound of my dad typing on a mechanical keyboard. I think maybe I've mentioned that in other videos before, but like very soothing. And so when I was drawing all of this, I was like, it has to be like the nostalgia. And then the computer is kind of spooky. And then there's like a bunch of pages of like pop-ups and it's like a quiz and it's a bit scary. And then like you're bleeding on the keyboard. And then the shopkeeper is out with a torch looking for you. And then back in the attic and the lamp is on for the first time and it's cozy and there's a blanket appeared on the chair. And then I had to try and wrap it up. And I'm really bad at ending things. I always feel like my endings are very rushed and kind of unceremonious, but I have a hard time and I really needed it to be done. There's a little notes page at the back, which again, if the book had been lay flat, would have been great. But for the meantime, it's okay. And then I have acknowledgements, and there's that photo we talked about with my grandfather. And then also my grandparents' farm, so my dad's mum and her husband. Because I spent a lot of time on the farm growing up too. And again, I think it's equal parts inspired by the shop and by a very green countryside childhood, I guess. And that's Undermoss. Obviously there's a lot of details in there. I hope you'll enjoy it if you read it. I hope you'll read it. I've been working on it really hard. I hope you like it, and I hope maybe you'll consider buying it if you're interested. But I think that's everything. I don't want to talk about it for a very, very, very long time. I think this video is already longer than I had planned, but that is how it turned out. Links all in the description, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and I'll get back to you, definitely. I'll keep on top of it this week, if you have questions about Undermoss. I hope you like it. I came from a strangely difficult time. At first, it came from just a bit of homesickness, and then obviously I got really unwell and it just became so much bigger than that. It really became a lifeline for me, and I think about it constantly. I'm meant to be taking a break now, but like I drew miles the other night and I was like, how did you get it? Like I don't know, thinking about Undermoss. So thank you for watching and I will see you next time.